What's going on, everyone? Welcome back. It's finally here. NFL football for this 2019 season is right around the corner with week 1 approaching. So you know what time it is. I'm coming at you with my weekly NFL game picks outright versus the spread and with our locks of the week. So let's get right into it. Kicking off this 2019 season on Thursday Night Football, we have got the Green Bay Packers at the Chicago Bears. And even though we don't see the defending Super Bowl champions in this matchup, we still see a pretty decent game here because the Packers, the Bears, all the history in the 100th year anniversary, two divisional opponents. It should be a great atmosphere here, folks. And I think we're going to see a pretty intriguing game. But I actually think it'll probably be a little bit lower scoring than some people anticipate. And honestly, I actually see the Green Bay Packers probably having the edge here. But let's break it down because starting with the home team, the Chicago Bears. Look, we know what we're going to get from the Bears. The strength of this team is the defense. They're one of the best, if not the best, defensive unit in the NFL. They've got a new defensive coordinator, but for the most part, the players are the same. So I don't see a big drop off there. But the two big question marks here will be, first and foremost, Mitchell Trubisky and the offense and his growth into becoming as to what Bears fans hope to be a franchise quarterback. But then probably even more importantly, the kicker position for the Chicago Bears. We all know how last season ended for them in the playoffs on that double doink via Cody Parkey. Now you've got a new kicker in there. Is he going to be able to handle the pressure? And what's going to happen during that first field goal attempt? It's going to be very interesting. But honestly, what this game will really come down to is, like I said before, Mitchell Trubisky and that offense. And unfortunately so, probably not what a lot of Bears fans want to hear. I'm just not sold on Mitchell Trubisky as a franchise quarterback. Heck, even as an average quarterback, because everything I've seen from him these last two seasons, even though he might have some nice intangibles, having a strong arm and having good rushing ability, he just doesn't deliver most in the most basic category of an accurate thrower of the football, having that pocket presence, and that's really worrisome to me. So for that reason, I give the edge to the Packers here because we all know what Aaron Rodgers can do when he's healthy. And honestly, I think the Green Bay Packers are going to win the NFC North when it's all said and done. Now, don't get me wrong. I think it's going to be a battle. I think the Chicago Bears will have something to say about it. I think low-key the Minnesota Vikings will as well. But the Green Bay Packers with Aaron Rodgers under center and improved defense via the draft and via free agency, I think they're a sleeper team that people aren't giving enough credit to. And I actually think that this will be more of a defensive contest, probably in the realms of 13-10, where I give the edge to the Green Bay Packers. Look, there's a lot of things to consider here. The reason I say this is because obviously you've got the Bears defense on one side, and on the other side, I see some offensive struggles taking place for the Bears in this game, even though they have a great offensive weapons in guys like Allen Robinson, Tariq Cohen, the newly acquired David Montgomery, Mike Davis, Taylor Gabriel. It's just a question of whether they will be utilized optimally via Mitchell Trubisky in this game, and I say unfortunately no. Also, the Bears starters didn't really play all that much during the preseason, so I anticipate some rust there. All in all, that pretty much accumulates to a Green Bay Packers victory in my eyes. Like I said, I think it'll be close. I think the Bears will have a chance at the end, but ultimately Aaron Rodgers makes enough plays, converts enough third downs, and the Packers get the victory here. I think, like I said before, 13-10. The spread minus 3.5 for the Chicago Bears. They're at home, so it kind of makes sense there. But since I like the Packers outright, I'm also taking them on the spread. Next up, we've got the Atlanta Falcons at the Minnesota Vikings in what I think could sneakily be one of the best matchups of this week. I love both of these offenses. The Atlanta Falcons last season, even though they had a disappointing year similar to the Vikings, Matt Ryan quietly had MVP type of numbers. You know that this offense is going to be electric. I love what they did during the offseason to go ahead and add pieces, especially during the draft on that offensive line for depth. A healthy Devonta Freeman is one of the best dual threat running backs in the NFL. You've got incredible pass catching talent with Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley, Mohamed Sanu, Austin Hooper. And for that reason, I give the edge here to the Atlanta Falcons offense, even though the Vikings offense is not one to sleep on, because I think they're going to be a run-first team. So I really do think that we're going to see a heavy dose of Dalvin Cook, not only in this game, but moving forward. And as long as Dalvin Cook is healthy, he again falls into the category of one of these dual threat running backs. And we saw that the change late last season on offensive coordinators for the Vikings really did open things up for them in the rushing attack. Now, Kirk Cousins did struggle last season. The offensive line also was to blame there, and I do like some of the pieces they again added during free agency, during the draft. I think that should be an area that is improved. And obviously, you've got the probably two best wide receiver tandems in the NFL with guys like Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen on the squad, so you know that they have the ability in terms of pass catchers as well to really do some damage there. What I think probably ends up deciding this game is who makes more defensive stops, because I know both these offenses are going to show up. The Vikings had a disappointing season last year on the defensive front, so a lot of people were really looking to that and saying, if they can figure things out defensively, this is going to be a team that vies for the NFC North. While the Falcons, they just had so many injuries defensively last season that they didn't really have a chance in that area. But now with a lot of those guys healthy and returning, I do think we're going to see some improvement in that area for the Falcons as well. So I expect a really tough, close matchup here. Probably something in the realms of 27 to 24, 30 to 27. I think there's going to be a lot of points being put up here. But ultimately, I'm going to go with the Atlanta Falcons. I think they're going to be the best offense in the NFL, and I think Matt Ryan is going to make just a couple more plays than Kirk Cousins versus that Minnesota defense. Now, something that could potentially be a factor here is Julio Jones all of a sudden appearing on some injury reports. Is he going to play? Won't he play? Is this have anything to do with his contract situation? If he doesn't play, well, this then becomes potentially a different story. Then I'd be a lot more inclined to look at the Minnesota Vikings here. But for now, as far as I know, Julio Jones set to play on Sunday. So for that reason, I still give the edge to the Atlanta Falcons outright. On the spread, the Vikings -4.5. They're favorited. But since I like the Falcons outright, I'm also taking them on the spread. Continuing on, we have got the Buffalo Bills at the New York Jets, another divisional matchup. And I think this story here will center around the two sophomore quarterbacks, one Josh Allen and the other Sam Darnold. But just as big of a story will be the new shiny toy of the New York Jets, their new starting running back, Le'Veon Bell. After sitting out the entirety of 2018, he got his big money deal with the Jets. And now you have to imagine he's going to be getting force-fed the football. He's going to be getting tons of carries, tons of catching opportunities. He's by far, in my eyes, the best offensive weapon that the Jets have. Now, the concerning part here is the offensive line for the Jets, not even in the same breath as that of the Pittsburgh Steelers. However, I will say I love the addition of Ryan Khalil after he returned from retirement. I think that will go ahead and be a nice cornerstone for this Jets offense, at least this year, since Khalil, he probably doesn't have too many more years left in the NFL. He was a very good steadying force for the Panthers when he was starting for them. And on the other side of things, the Jets went ahead and improved the defense. They went ahead and added some nice pieces there. So it's going to be an interesting side of things to also keep an eye out for. But when it's all said and done, look, I think the Bills and the Jets, the starting quarterbacks here, neither of them are quite where I'd like to see them as passers. Josh Allen, obviously, he's more of a running threat than a passing threat. Sam Darnold, he had a nice preseason, but that doesn't count for too much. And he's going to go up versus a pretty decent Buffalo Bills defense. Now, I will say the Jets have more offensive weapons with guys like Robbie Anderson and Le'Veon Bell. The question is, which one of these young quarterbacks will have the better day? Because if it's Josh Allen, then I see the Bills winning. If it's Sam Darnold, I think it'll be the Jets. Now, since it's that close to call for me, I'm staying away from this game when it comes to betting. But I will say, I think ultimately these two teams split the series at the end of 2019, and I give the advantage to the home team here since I think it'll be that close. For that reason, I'll pick the New York Jets outright. But to kind of hedge my bets, I'm going to go ahead and take the Bills on the spread because it's right at -3.5. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if the Jets, if they do win, if it's right at 2 or 3 points on a game-winning field goal. So even though the Jets are favored by -3.5, I'm taking the Bills on the spread and the Jets outright. Moving on, we've got the Tennessee Titans at the Cleveland Browns, and maybe no team in the NFL this offseason has had more hype on them than the Cleveland Browns. And it makes sense considering the addition of an Odell Beckham, the expected growth of Baker Mayfield, and also the addition of Kareem Hunt, even though we won't see him for a while. But this offense is absolutely loaded with talent. The defense also has a bunch of playmakers. So on paper, this Browns team is going to be stacked and should be one of the favorites in the AFC. But that's the great thing about the NFL. Just because on paper it looks one way doesn't actually mean it will go in that direction. There's so many personalities, so many egos on this Browns team that nothing is for sure. And with recent reports saying that Odell Beckham is kind of dealing with this hip injury that's preventing him from being 100%, even though he's expected to play, that might be a limiting factor for this offense. Now, either way, whether Odell plays or not, I still like the Browns in this game. Plain and simple, I just don't trust this Titans offense. You've got Marcus Mariota, but how long will he stay the starting quarterback before he either gets hurt or gets replaced by Ryan Tannehill? Offensively speaking, they've got a good offensive line. They're going to be missing a guy in Taylor Lewan due to suspension, though, for a while, and he's one of the best offensive linemen in the NFL. Can Derrick Henry go ahead and really take that next step? How much faith do you have in that? Me personally, I think what we saw at the last parts of 2018 from him was great, but I just don't think it'll be duplicated. And then as far as pass catchers go, I don't really see any big name guy that has breakout potential. Corey Davis is someone that we've been waiting on, and it still hasn't happened. Delaney Walker returning will be a nice security blanket for this team. But again, he's not that guy that he used to be. He's getting older and older, coming back from a serious injury. So offensively, I take the Browns, and it's not even close. The Titans have a decent defense, but so do the Browns, like we said before. So I think that'll be a wash, which comes down to I'm going with the better offense, better quarterback, better running attack. Nick Chubb over Derrick Henry. I'll take him every single day. I'll take the wide receivers in Jarvis Landry, Odell, Antonio Callaway, David Njoku over what the Titans have. So I'm taking the Browns at home here outright. On the spread, they're at -5.5. That's an interesting line, but I think they can go ahead and win this game by a touchdown. I think they pull away late. So I'm going to say the Browns over on the spread. Next up, we have got the Kansas City Chiefs at the Jacksonville Jaguars. Here, we've got the reigning NFL MVP in Patrick Mahomes, the new darling of the NFL, going up in what a lot of people think will be a resurgent Jacksonville defense. Look, they definitely have the names. They've got guys like a Josh Allen that they just added during this NFL draft that there's big expectations for. So it's going to be an intriguing contest. But honestly, what a lot of Jacksonville fans will be looking at here will be the quarterback position and the newly acquired Nick Foles, who everyone hopes can be their franchise quarterback after Blake Bortles was let go. Honestly, what the Jaguars need is a stable game-managing quarterback, what Blake Bortles was 2 years ago when the Jaguars made that deep playoff run, because they've got the pieces here. Even though they don't have those flashy wide receivers, they've got a guy in Leonard Fournette that if he stays healthy, he can be a beast of a running back. That offensive line, again, it's got the pieces. It just needs to stay healthy for the Jaguars. And it's still early on, so you've got those pieces available. So I think we're going to see a decent performance from the Jaguars early on this season. but I just don't think they have enough firepower to contend with the Kansas City Chiefs. They're going to be at full throttle, the Chiefs. Look, Tyreek Hill is going to be playing the entirety of the season. Damian Williams, the newly acquired LaShawn McCoy, Travis Kelce, and then Patrick Mahomes. So even though I don't think the Chiefs' offense will be as good as it was in 2018, and I don't think Patrick Mahomes will put up the numbers that he did last season, I still like this Chiefs' offense to be one of the best in the NFL. And I think they're going to go ahead and do just enough to beat the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think it'll probably be a little bit lower scoring at first until Patrick Mahomes gets a good feel for the Jaguars and the type of coverages they're running. But then I think in the third, fourth quarter, the Chiefs probably pull away a little bit. Even though I do think there'll still be a competitive contest for the majority of the game, I just think that the Chiefs probably end up winning by right around a touchdown. So I'm going to take them outright here. I just think they have too many offensive pieces. Even though the Jaguars have an upgrade at the quarterback position, I just don't think that this is the ideal test for them this early on in the season. I think it's going to be an interesting matchup as far as the spread is concerned. The Jaguars at plus 3.5. But honestly, I think that number should be higher. Probably around plus 5.5, right around there. So for that reason, I'm taking the Chiefs pretty comfortably on the spread. Continuing on, we have got the LA Rams at the Carolina Panthers, and I think this should be a pretty exciting matchup. A lot of storylines to follow here. On one end, you have got the Rams, who are the runners-up as far as Super Bowl participants are concerned from the end of last year. And then you've got the Panthers, who are returning now with the supposedly healthy Cam Newton. They had a little bit of an injury scare during the preseason with his ankle, but he's expected to start. And we obviously know that this offense goes through him. We saw what this team was after he got hurt late last season. It wasn't even comparable. And additionally, you've got the whole Todd Gurley situation. He was the subject of much talk during the offseason with his arthritic knee. What would happen with him going forward? Would it be a timeshare? How much usage would he have? Well, this week, announcement was made that he'd be quote-unquote unleashed versus the Panthers, so that'll be interesting to watch. But that's going to be very important. I think the Rams need to get Todd Gurley going in this game to really set up the pass, because that passing attack is going to be lethal. A deadly trio of wide receivers in Cooks, Woods, and then Cooper Kupp hopefully coming back what it looks like to be healthy from his ACL last season, and Jared Goff continuing to make steps forward. I really do think that this game will be ultimately won in the trenches. Obviously, on one side for the Rams, you've got Aaron Donald, the best defensive player in all of football. And then on the other side, you've got a pretty good defensive line for the Carolina Panthers. You've already got K'Wan Short. You added a guy in Gerald McCoy who was underappreciated in Tampa Bay. You added a guy in Brian Burns through the draft. You've still got Luke Kuechly, Shaq Thompson. So I really do think the front seven here will be the deciding factor in this game. I still think there will be a lot of points put up. I think combined, you're probably going to see more than 40, 45 points in this game. It's going to come down to which defense comes up more clutch. And honestly, I ultimately think that will be the Panthers here. I do expect a little bit of a hangover for the Rams. Historically, we have seen that from the losing side of the Super Bowl. And I could see this being a little bit of a trap game. I do think the Rams have more stars, both on offense and on defense to some extent. But the Panthers, with a healthy Cam Newton, I think they can go ahead and steal one from the Rams at home. Now, I'm not all that excited about the pass catchers the Panthers have. I think Cam Newton is really going to have to do a lot here with his legs, because DJ Moore and Curtis Samuel, probably some of the worst pass catchers in the NFL as far as just duos and pass catching combinations available. There's not a true wide receiver number one on that team. It's, if you have to pick the best pass catcher on that team, it'd probably be either Christian McCaffrey or Greg Olsen. That's how little depth there is at that position there. So that's going to be another interesting factor there. This will be a game that I'm definitely circling. It's going to be a must watch. I think how this game goes is going to speak a lot to the type of season that both of these teams will have. Right now, I'm like I said before, this is a coin flip for me, so I'm going to go with the home team. I think the Rams have a little bit of a hangover. I'm going to go with the Panthers outright. They are plus 2.5 on the spread, so since I'm going with them outright, I will also take them on the spread. Next, we've got the Baltimore Ravens at the Miami Dolphins, an AFC clash. And honestly, I think that even though the Ravens are on the road here, and even though they might be a pretty one-dimensional team, this is going to be one of the more decisive victories this week. I like the Ravens a lot in this contest. I don't care if they're on the road. Right now, the Dolphins, I think, are going to be in contention for one of the worst teams in the NFL. Hopefully, I'm wrong. I might get some hate from the Miami fans out there, but Ryan Fitzpatrick slated to start the season. I'm not going to be surprised at all if Josh Rosen at some point in time becomes the starting quarterback for this team just to see what they have in him. As far as offensive weapons are concerned, the Miami Dolphins don't have too many. They traded away Kenny Stills, who I thought was their most explosive playmaker. At the running back position, we'll see what Kenyon Drake has, whether Kalen Ballage will play a role in that backfield. But it's going to be tough either way versus this Baltimore defense. I know they've lost some pieces there, but they're still going to be a good unit. This is a defensive-first squad. The Miami Dolphins defensively on their end, they don't have that many dominant pieces either. So for that reason, even though this might be a one-dimensional offense for the Ravens with Lamar Jackson pretty much being a running back at the quarterback position, and even though he still has a lot of growing to do as a passer, I still think the Ravens will be able to do enough to win this game. But I will say, I think this could be a little bit lower scoring than some people expect just because of the type of play style of the Ravens. When you run the ball, when you tend to focus more so on that than passing, the time is going to go off the clock a lot faster. Drives are going to take longer. You're probably not going to have as many quick scores as usual. So I could see this being like a 20-10 type of outcome, or 20-13, 20-17, something like that, with the Ravens ultimately coming out on top. I think Lamar Jackson will be able to do enough. I think Mark Ingram will have a good game. I just think right now the Ravens are a better team, and they are more organized, if that makes sense, a more complete unit than that of the Miami Dolphins. So I'm going to take the Ravens on the road. I think Lamar Jackson will have a pretty good game. If there was ever a game, I think, where he could have some success throwing the football, it would be here. So I'll take the Ravens to win outright on the spread. It's plus 4.5. I think the Ravens will end up probably pulling away at the end of this game. I think, like I said before, it'll be 20-10, 20-13. So to me, they cover the spread on that end as well. Moving on, we've got the Washington Redskins at the Philadelphia Eagles. And a lot of people probably saying, even though this is a divisional clash, this is a slam dunk pick. And I'd say hold your roll here, because this is actually one of my favorite games to bet on, with the spread being minus 9.5 for the Eagles. I think with these two teams being divisional opponents, and with the Redskins having a sneaky good defense, you're going to see a closer game than people expect. And I think the Redskins are going to make this a tight game for the Eagles, and they're going to really make them work for it. Now, at the end, I'm not going to go ahead and get too crazy. I'm still going to pick the Eagles to win at home. I think they've got, by a mile, the better offense. At quarterback, Carson Wentz, pass catchers for sure. The running backs, both these teams don't really necessarily have a workhorse running back. They've kind of got just a trio of running backs. We'll see what Miles Sanders looks like, or Jordan Howard, whoever it is for the Philadelphia Eagles. But either way, Case Keenum versus Carson Wentz, that's what this comes down to me. Last time we saw a healthy Carson Wentz, he was in talks for MVP, so I don't necessarily think that we're going to see that immediate type of play from him at the start of this season. There's going to be some rust, considering he's kind of been injured these last 1.5 seasons. But I do think we're going to see a win from the Eagles at the end. They've got a good enough defense where I think they're going to force Case Keenum into his own share of mistakes, and that's going to ultimately lead to the Eagles winning this game. But right around 7, 8, 9 points. I'm not comfortable in taking the double-digit victory for the Eagles, so I'm taking them outright, but I am absolutely taking the Redskins on the spread. Next up, we've got the Cincinnati Bengals at the Seattle Seahawks. And honestly, I think this will probably be one of the more straightforward wins of this week, specifically for Seattle. And it kind of pains me to say that because I actually thought the Bengals were going to be a sleeper team offensively this season. I love their selection of Jonah Williams to beef up that offensive line during the draft, but then obviously he gets hurt. There's retirements on that line. You see A.J. Green go out. He's going to be out for several games. And all of a sudden, that offense is a bit depleted now. As much as I like Joe Mixon and Tyler Boyd, I think the key to this game for the Bengals, if they want to stay in it, is really just keep getting Joe Mixon involved in any way possible. But this being a road game, very tough start to the season for Cincinnati. I wouldn't be surprised if game script just doesn't allow for Mixon to be involved in this game as much. I think it's going to turn into a passing fest for the Bengals. So Tyler Boyd is going to get plenty of opportunities. But I just think Andy Dalton, when it matters most, is going to make several mistakes. I like the Seattle front seven. I really like the addition of Jadeveon Clowney, obviously. That Seattle secondary still has some question marks, so Cincinnati should have some opportunities there. But ultimately, with that 12th man and with Russell Wilson and Chris Carson, I think Seattle will be able to run the football down the throat of the Bengals, who have a lot of question marks defensively. So for that reason, I'm taking the Seahawks here, even without a guy in Doug Baldwin who retired this season. I think Seattle still has enough firepower with guys like Chris Carson, Russell Wilson, and Tyler Lockett, that nice little trio, to go ahead and put away the Cincinnati Bengals. But I will say this, I wouldn't be surprised if the Bengals make a little bit of a run late in this game. But I still don't think it will be enough. I like this to be somewhat of a high-scoring game, especially for the Seahawks. I'll take them to win outright. The spread -9.5 in favor of Seattle. Now, if this was a road game, I'd probably stay away from this high of a spread. But again, with this being a home game for Seattle, where they're such a better team, I'm actually going to go ahead and take the over on the spread. I think the Seahawks win by double digits. Next, we have got the Indianapolis Colts at the LA Chargers in a game that on paper about a month ago seemed like it could be one of the best of the week, has now turned into probably a lock win for the Chargers. But that's what happens whenever you have your franchise quarterback in Andrew Luck unexpectedly retire from the NFL. Now it's going to be the Jacoby Brissett show for the Colts, and we all remember what that team looked like the last time he was the starter. Now, albeit this is a better team compared to that, but I still don't think Brissett is really a starting NFL caliber quarterback. I think guys like T.Y. Hilton and Marlon Mack and other big name guys like Eric Ebron, Jack Doyle are all going to suffer big time in terms of stat productions and potential scoring opportunities, things like that, because of the downgrade, which is a big one again from Andrew Luck to Jacoby Brissett. Favorably, that defense still has some nice pieces, so they're going to be able to, hold their own for at least a bit. But I do think at some point in time that offense being hampered with that unexpected retirement, and now with being a type of handicapped offense, is only going to be able to sustain defensive stops for so long. And that'll definitely be the case with an explosive Chargers offense, with or without Melvin Gordon. It seems like he's not going to play week one because of his contract disputes. That doesn't matter. The Chargers still have Austin Eckler and Justin Jackson. I think that'll be plenty. You've still got Keenan Allen, you've got Mike Williams, you've got Hunter Henry, and Phillip Rivers. So this is, to me, a slam dunk win for the Chargers at home. Offensively, they're the much better team. Defensively, I think, even though, they might not have as balanced of a squad as the Colts, they're going to have a lot of success on that defensive line, getting to Jacoby Brissett and ultimately forcing errors from the Colts, leading to turnovers, and what will ultimately, I think, end up being a bit of a blowout when it's all said and finished. So I'm taking the Chargers here outright. The spread -2.5 only for the Chargers. I am absolutely taking the over on that, pretty confident in saying so. I think the Chargers win by at least a field goal, if not a touchdown or more. Next up, we've got another divisional clash with the New York Giants at the Dallas Cowboys. And the biggest storyline heading into this game was the status of Ezekiel Elliott. But no worries, Cowboys fans. Kind of like how we expected, a deal did get done before the start of season for Zeke, making him the highest paid running back in the NFL. But again, we knew this would happen because the Cowboys, they go as Zeke goes. No matter what you hear about the quarterback position, this is one of those circumstances where the running back dictates the success of this offense. That's just how this Cowboys team is built. And it's mostly because Dak Prescott still hasn't hit that level of NFL quarterback elite, because he's more so still a game manager, a guy that'll make a big throw from time to time, but not someone that I would rely to win a game if it's do or die, and to put those extremely accurate passes right into the hands of his wide receivers. Speaking of his wide receivers, other than Amari Cooper, not a lot there. We'll see the emergence of Michael Gallup this season, if that will continue or not. So I actually think offensively, even though the Cowboys have the better offensive line, that the Giants won't be that much more outmatched. I actually think this is probably a series that ends up being split between the Giants and the Cowboys. Just because this is a home game for Dallas, I'm going to give them the edge there. I think they do have the better defense, but I like the pieces the Giants have offensively. They've obviously got Saquon Barkley, so they've got their version of Zeke there. Their offensive line, okay, not as good as that of the Cowboys, but Eli Manning, I still think he is a serviceable quarterback. He still has his moments, and I think that we're going to see good things from guys like Sterling Shepard and Evan Ingram this year, so I'm high on that. But defensively speaking, I think is really where the Cowboys hold the edge and what's going to give them the victory for this game. So to me, that's the reason that I'm going to say Cowboys win this game outright. But I do think this divisional clash, this is a classic game. It's going to be close heading into the fourth quarter. Either one of these teams is going to have a chance to win it. It's going to come down to a turnover. We're going to see Jerry Jones sweating it out in the press box. But ultimately, the Cowboys will get a slight victory, maybe by a field goal or 4 or 5 points. So I'll take them outright. But the spread, -7.5, man, I feel pretty comfortable taking the Giants on that spread. I don't think the Cowboys are going to win by 8 points. So for that reason, Cowboys outright, but the Giants on the spread. Next up, we've got the Detroit Lions at the Arizona Cardinals. And even though these probably aren't going to be a set of teams that are vying for the playoffs in late December, I actually think that there's a pretty big intrigue in this game because of the debut of one Kyler Murray, and also his head coach Cliff Kingsbury and the offensive system that he will have in place for the Cardinals. Now, on paper, neither one of these defenses is really all that great, so I actually think this is going to be a pretty high-scoring affair, and it's going to be a fun contest. Now, for the Cardinals, them being the home team, they're actually not favored in this matchup. Makes sense to some degree since they're going to be starting a rookie quarterback, but I think offensively they're just as good, if not better, than the Detroit Lions. They've got one of the best running backs in the NFL in David Johnson. They've got more playmakers offensively, pass catchers definitely, than the Detroit Lions, guys like Larry Fitzgerald, Christian Kirk. Whereas the Detroit Lions, other than Kenny Golladay, they've got an often injured Marvin Jones. I think they just haven't surrounded, as of late, Matthew Stafford with enough talent around him. This used to be a pass-first team. It used to be very pass-heavy. Matthew Stafford used to be one of the league leaders in terms of passing yards year in and year out. That's no longer the case, and I don't really see that changing in 2019. Matt Patricia there, he's not really that offensive-minded head coach. He's more got that defensive mentality. But go figure, that defense struggled a whole hell of a lot last season too. I don't think that's going to really change this season either. Same for the Cardinals. There's going to be a lot of holes on both these teams. They're probably going to be picking somewhere in the top 10 in the 2020 draft. But hey, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we're going to see a big surprise from one of these teams. If I had to pick right now, I'd probably put my money on the Arizona Cardinals, because of the versatility at the quarterback position. But all in all, this being a home game for the Cardinals and them having what I think will be a more diversified electric offense, one that'll be harder to game plan for and stop, I'm giving them the edge here. I think the Cardinals win this game in what I think it will be pretty high scoring, maybe somewhere in the realms of 27-20. So I'm taking the Cardinals outright. They're actually plus 2.5 on the spread, so Detroit is favored. So for that reason, I'm taking them outright and on the spread. Next up, we've got the San Francisco 49ers at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And similar to our last matchup, I don't think there's going to be all that much defense being played here. In fact, I think this is going to be a very high-scoring type of shootout affair. The 49ers getting back a healthy Jimmy Garoppolo, knock on wood. Hopefully we finally get a full season from him and see if he can live up to his contract and to his potential. And then on the other side, we've got Jameis Winston in his make or break year with new head coach Bruce Arians, who's going to definitely allow Jameis Winston to take a lot of shots downfield. We saw it last season for this Bucs offense. Even though it didn't generate a lot of wins, man, they put up a lot of points and a lot of yards. And I think they have the potential to do so again. They've got the weapons offensively. Jameis, Mike Evans, O.J. Howard, Chris Godwin. So I'm excited about that to watch this team. Then the 49ers, you've got Jimmy Garoppolo, Kittle, guys like a Dante Pettis, Marquise Goodwin. You've still got Tevin Coleman, Matt Breida. So it's going to be really interesting to watch this matchup here. Ultimately, again, I think both these teams probably, when it's all said and done, finish either in third or fourth place in their division. But for now, I think the 49ers probably have a more positive outlook to this season. In fact, I think they could surprise a lot of people if Jimmy Garoppolo does manage to stay healthy. They've got some playmakers on the squad. I like the addition of Bosa in the draft. I believe he is expected to play, so that'll be intriguing to see him there. They're continuing to add pieces to that defense. And when it's all said and done, I have more faith in Jimmy Garoppolo making less mistakes down the stretch than I do Jameis Winston. And also, I have more faith in Kyle Shanahan as a play caller than that of Bruce Arians. So give me the 49ers to win this game on the road outright. Right now, the Bucs actually favored at home at -1.5. So that spread pretty much tells you that this is a coin flip of a game, since the home team's given usually right around -2.5, -3 points. So I'm going to take not only the 49ers outright, but also on the spread. Getting to Sunday Night Football, we've got a marquee matchup between the Pittsburgh Steelers at the New England Patriots. Tom Brady versus Big Ben, two future Hall of Famers, in what should be a very high-scoring and entertaining contest. The road team, the Steelers here, a lot of people are going to be focusing on this new-look offense without Antonio Brown, without Le'Veon Bell, two of the staples for the Steelers the last several years, no longer there. Now it's the James Conner and Juju Smith show, but I'm not too worried about it. Both those guys have proven that they can be the lead dude at their respective position, and on top of that, you've got a healthy Big Ben, a dominant offensive line. I'm not worried about them at all. The only thing that I'm intrigued about is who will be that wide receiver 2 that steps up behind Juju Smith. I believe right now it'll probably be James Washington, but it'll probably take a couple of weeks for that to get sorted out. And then on the other end, you've got the New England Patriots, who've got a storyline of their own. No more Rob Gronkowski. He retires, so what's this offense going to look like now? Honestly, I don't think it'll look all that different. You've still got Julian Edelman, all reliable, even though there might not be too many flashy, big-time names on this offense. Tom Brady still gets it done, no matter what wide receivers he has. Josh Gordon should be available for this game, newly reinstated. We'll see how much of a role he has, or if he's more so of a kind of a dummy that draws coverages away from other guys. But you've got Sony Michel, who I think will be fed the rock a bunch. You've got James White. You've got plenty of options on this offense. And the Patriots also have a sneaky good defense. So honestly, at home, where the Patriots are so tough to beat, even though Brady might not be able to go for 400 yards week in and week out, he's still one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. And at home, there's almost no one I would rather have I like the Patriots to go ahead and win this game. I think it'll be close. I think the Steelers will have their opportunities, but in the end, Bill Belichick and Tom Brady will prevail yet again. Now, the spread here is where it's interesting because it's -6.5 for the Patriots, so right around a touchdown. Like I said, I think this will be high scoring, maybe like 33 to 30, something like that. But I think the Steelers hang in long enough to go ahead and make this, like I said before, 3-4 point type of game. So I'm actually taking the Steelers on the spread. Moving on to our first Monday night contest, we have got the Houston Texans at the New Orleans Saints. And to me, this is going to be a classic Saints victory. At home, the Saints are just so tough to beat, one of the best home field advantages in the NFL. But on top of that, they've consistently been one of the highest scoring teams in the NFL these last few seasons. Honestly, I think they should have been representing the NFC in the Super Bowl these last 2 seasons if it wasn't for just some very unfortunate luck on their end. But they dominate the regular season. I wouldn't be surprised if they put up 30 points here, if not more. Even though Drew Brees isn't as dominant as he once was, similar to Tom Brady, he can get it done when he has to. But this is going to be the Alvin Kamara and probably Latavius Murray show. And if the Saints get in trouble, then guess what? Michael Thomas, one of the best wide receivers in the league, is at the disposal of Drew Brees. And Michael Thomas catches absolutely everything. We know the type of pinpoint accuracy Drew Brees has. So that's as deadly of a combination in the league as you could possibly want. There's the newly acquired Jared Cook, who I think will be a nice presence to this offense as well. The Saints also have an underappreciated defense, and when you have that home field advantage behind you, I think you're going to see some plays being made by them. On the other side, you've got the road team, the Houston Texans. Look, I like the pieces that they have offensively. Deshaun Watson, obviously a great dual threat quarterback, but when it comes to being that accurate passer, I still think he has a lot of room for improvement. But as far as wide receivers are concerned, wow, they have got a lot of options. DeAndre Hopkins, arguably one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. A healthy Will Fuller, the newly acquired Kenny Stills. And all of a sudden, you've got a lot of guys that can absolutely burn you deep for a quick touchdown. No more Lamar Miller available to the Texans in this game. It'll be Duke Johnson and Carlos Hyde. But to me, that doesn't even come close to Alvin Kamara and Latavius Murray. That offensive line, to me, is still a big question mark for Deshaun Watson. Will he be running around for his life like he did in 2018? We will see. This will be a good test. I think the Texans defense, they're really going to have to rely on them to keep them in this game. But I just don't think the Saints this early on in the season will fall for this type of trap game. I like them to win. I like them to win big even. At home, I'm taking them outright. The spread, -6.5. I wouldn't be surprised if this is a double-digit victory for the Saints. So I will take the over on the spread and take the Saints there as well. Getting to our last Monday night game, we have got the Denver Broncos at the Oakland Raiders. A lot of storylines to follow here. The Broncos with a new quarterback, Joe Flacco, with a new head coach, Vic Fangio. While the Oakland Raiders, man, they've been in the news for all the wrong reasons. And in large part, that has been because of their new star wide receiver, Antonio Brown. At first, it was, will he be healthy enough to play? Then it was, will he find the right helmet to play? Then it was, will he be suspended for this game or not? A lot of drama here. We'll see what happens. Ultimately, I think that the Raiders, whether they have Antonio Brown or not available, are probably going to lose this game. I think, to me, they don't have enough defensive pieces here. And the Denver Broncos with Joe Flacco and guys like Philip Lindsay and Emmanuel Sanders, who coming back this early from an Achilles injury, wow, super impressive. I think we'll be able to put up enough points on the Raiders. To me, both these offenses are mediocre, below average, so I call it a wash there. To me, the big difference will be the defense, and I think the Broncos have a decided advantage there. I think they're going to force the Raiders offense into several mistakes. I think they're going to clog up the lanes for rookie running back Josh Jacobs. So with that being said, it's going to really be force Derek Carr to beat you. So even though this is a divisional game and these teams are probably going to split the series. Right now, I feel like the Broncos are the better team. There's just been so much drama around the Raiders. I wouldn't be surprised if they kind of come out flat in this game. I'm taking the Broncos to win this game behind a good defensive effort. I think probably we're looking in the realms of 20-17. So I'll take the Broncos outright. The spread has the Raiders as the favorites at -2.5. So for that reason, I'm going Broncos as well on the spread. So with that, we finish our pick'ems. Now looking at our locks of the week, we start with the Tennessee Titans at the Cleveland Browns. And right now, the Titans offense, I just don't think has enough firepower to compete with the Browns. They have too many offensive playmakers. They've also got a very stout defense. I think they're going to make it a long day for the turnover-prone Marcus Mariota. Give me the Browns at home to win this game. Next, I'm looking at the Baltimore Ravens at the Miami Dolphins. I like the Ravens to win this game. They're going to have a good enough defense to stymie Ryan Fitzpatrick. I think with Lamar Jackson and with Mark Ingram, even though it might be a bit one-dimensional, they're going to be able to wear down this Miami defense and make this a road victory for them. Moving on, Cincinnati Bengals at Seattle Seahawks. Give me the Seattle Seahawks at home to win this game. The Bengals way too banged up. They've got way too many holes on that defense. I think Russell Wilson and Chris Carson go wild in this game, and I think that defensive line gets to Andy Dalton for a potential blowout. Next, Indianapolis Colts at the LA Chargers. It's as simple as no Andrew Luck, no chance for the Colts, and especially when it's versus a stout team like the LA Chargers. I love what the Chargers present offensively at home too, and a good defense to put pressure on Jacoby Brissett and make him commit several turnovers. Give me the Chargers, no questions about it. And finally, Houston Texans at the New Orleans Saints. I love the New Orleans Saints offensively. I think they're going to be a great offensive team yet again. Alvin Kamara, Michael Thomas, Drew Brees. That home field advantage, that underrated defense, I think it'll get to Deshaun Watson, force him into some mistakes, which will ultimately lead to a New Orleans victory. So with that, we finish our locks as well. And as always, let me know what you guys thought. Did you agree, disagree with these picks? Let me hear it in the comments section along with any other questions you guys might have. And as always, if you enjoyed, make sure to like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in future videos.